Contemporary artists that make me want to rip my skin off. In a good way. That is the premise of the video. Let's dissect that. I will be showing artists that do make me want to peel off my skin, but like not in the boring way. If I just kept saying, oh my gosh, here's someone ripping off their skin, that is just like the boring way of going about it. Artists like Vaxo Lang, Francis Bacon, those are all very cool and they delve in body horror. But do you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to look at art gives that same reaction, but in a subtle way. Like the creepiness and uneasiness when you look at something and you're like, I don't know why. That being said though, there are like 2 artists that go a little into the body horror stuff. Sorry, one of them specifically is like way worse than I thought. So if you just genuinely do not with body horror, just skip like this section or whatever. Let's set some ground rules. I need to explain what I mean by contemporary. I don't mean in the fancy art history way, like the whole art movement and there's like a style to it. No, I mean it in its most objective and literal definition. Artists that are still alive and making work today. Incredible. And before we start, I just want to catch the commenters that will inevitably be like, okay, now this is real art. This is none of that woke modern art stuff. Shut up. Wow, big original idea, dude. I'm not saying I'm disagreeing with you, but like we get it. Art is art is art is art. I will be talking about 5 artists. First one, Dragan Bibin. Bibin is an artist in Serbia, and he just makes a lot of weird, uncanny paintings like these in his collection, Demos. I think that to title these artworks is really interesting, because Deimos is like the divine personification of fear in Greek mythology. I don't think I really need to overanalyze why this creeps me out. It's like being alone in the basement as a kid when it's nighttime and you're looking out the window. People are not scared of the dark, they are scared of what's in the dark. And Bibin definitely plays with this idea. Like, what if you kept pulling that cloth and it just kept going? This artist definitely likes to use the theme of animals, which is such a cool choice because animals have always had this weird sixth sense about danger. Like birds will fly far, far away from a volcano like a day or days before a volcano erupts. My neighbor's dog used to do this thing where he would claw at the concrete floor in the garage, and we all knew it was probably just mice. But I didn't like the idea that there was something wrong and the dog knew before I did. And it's like that thing with the door. Like I know people's dogs have done this exact thing. Like imagine you were really there and you're seeing things out of place. You're catching something in the act. If it really does scare you, just imagine yourself walking up and closing that door. Ooh, it's just so creepy. It leads into that idea of if you hear something wrong, ignore it. Also, look at this little fan art thing. I think that's haha funny silly. And there's such little details. At first, you're thinking the cows are just peeking into your house, but notice the handprints around the door. If you like liminal spaces, this is liminal space. Bibin's artwork fills me with a certain dread. A dread that reminds me of something I don't think we talk about enough. When the second tower fell, Suguru Tanaka. Also real fast, if I pronounce something wrong, don't tell me I pronounced it wrong, okay? Like, we get it, like, just whatever. There is like 0 information you can find about this guy on the internet. The only thing I could find is like a Tumblr page, which honestly is more disturbing than the art itself. Suguru Tanaka is a digital artist, and he is surrealism at its most liminal and its most brutal. Every single one of his works are just very dark and very, very red, which speaks to our subconscious mind already, just right off the bat. This really is some berserk-ass art. There's nothing immediately threatening about these paintings, except maybe this one. Things are just kind of there, but that already fills you with discomfort, like you don't want them to notice you. It's liminality at its most intense, I think. It's that uneasiness that kind of draws you in. Occasionally, yes, he'll throw in these Junji Ito-esque creatures. Those designs are very gross, but very cool at the same time. It's disturbing to even ask if something is a building or an organic creature. What the viewer is standing on could potentially be alive. Yeah, I would not want to watch DreamWorks over the hedge here. I already talked about it in a different video, but big brutalist architecture like this kind of tells you that this is not made for you. In Suguru Tanaka's work, there is a terrifying lack of human presence. It almost makes you feel like you're alone. This might be a little dramatic, but looking at his art enough makes me feel like I can more fully grasp cosmic horror in some type of way. I like this painting in particular. I like it so much, I built it in Minecraft. I already know the comments are gonna bring it up, so yes, this guy was definitely inspired by Beksinski, which is like the nightmare artist, but guess what? He's dead. He doesn't count, so sorry. Let's take a second to get away from this deranged and disturbed art. So let's have a nice little intermission. Here's one of my favorite artists. He makes all these cute little street scenes where everyone is nice to each other and all like near the sea, and it's very wholesome. Everything's gonna be okay. Look how happy the world is. Here, I'll play some easy cleansing sounds. Yay, everything is okay. Everything is gonna be okay. Oh my God, look how cute I do not want to talk about Ken Currie. I wanted to talk about his art, and I began researching, but I couldn't do it. I feel like if I stare at his art for too long, something bad will happen. Ken Currie reaches down to the deepest parts of my subconscious, places that my evolution did not want me to find. A fight or flight my brain hoped I wouldn't have to confront. I feel that if I look long enough, my face will begin to bend and to buckle like into what I'm staring at, till my bones crack into a mirror of what stares back at me. I do not want to talk about Ken Currie. Julia Soboleva. Bibin portrays the uneasiness of seeing something that could happen. Julia Soboleva portrays the same feeling, but for something that already has happened. Many of her artworks are drawn onto old photographs, and a lot of the works in her monograph, I Have Found the Light in the Darkness, shows creatures doing procedures on humans with dated equipment. I like these pictures so much. She reminds me of my all-time 100% favorite artist, Kathy Collins. Okay, that one wasn't even my fault. That's just what my art history teacher always said.
Learning to love art. Kathy Collins.
Kathy Collins. Oh my. These two women have been able to distort and warp the human body and its expressions to a point of deep disturbance. Like we are watching phantoms and ghosts, not people. Which, funny story about Julia as a character, she does not think these are creepy. This is a quote. "People do sometimes see my images as scary," she says with a laugh, "but it is not my intention to scare. I just like exploring this space between light and dark." This is prime gaslighting, because how do you make that and not think it's weird? She was born in Latvia and in her words was an immigrant her whole life. It's strange to go to sleep in one country, Russia, and then wake up into another. In her own words, she has never felt a sense of identity, and I think that influences her work. Supposedly, Julia will go to extensive lengths to find the perfect photograph for her to basically graffiti. This specific type of art is called mixed media, if you didn't know. And I think that's something with mixed media that has always fascinated me. To me, at least, the medium feels blasphemous. Like, to make the art, you have to first bastardize something else. It feels like you're doing something wrong. But how does that lend to her art specifically? It makes me think if I really wanted to learn more about the original photograph, I wouldn't like what I find. The best way I can describe her work is like a child scribbling over a bad memory. This art just fills me with so much curiosity and a kind of sadness. A lot like the hit film of the mid-2000s, Over the Hedge by Agostino Arrivabene. Agostino Arrivabene. This artist has hundreds upon hundreds of paintings. I would not be able to show you all of them in a reasonable time frame. And he also does sculptures, like really, really good ones too. When artists paint this much, it makes me think they do it out of this sort of obsession. Like they cannot stop themselves from making whatever they put onto the canvas. Apparently there's a term for that called hypergraphia. I think that's really interesting. In other art, whenever there's a type of change with the body, there's usually a sign of struggle. However, all of his subjects seem to almost welcome it, as if they're at peace with their skin being warped. In some cases, they even take pleasure in it. But I have to remind myself, I'm assuming this is a state of change. But what if what I'm looking at just looks like that? What if I'm actually looking at an angel? I should have mentioned this before, but with all of his work, there is this religious undertone. Agostino grew up in Milan, Italy, and it's really hard to say if he's actively participating in the Catholic Church today. I was born in a small town where in the 60s and 70s, the sense of Christian and Catholic religion was fostered by mysterious and sometimes bloody rituals that, back then, were considered to be necessary to shape the faith of the locals. Ooh. He gives the impressions of a sort of hybrid between classical Renaissance era artworks and like the modern aesthetics of like contemporary artworks. Like you can see it. You can see that he's inspired by William Blake, Leonardo DiCaprio, Da Vinci, whoa. And it's like pretty obvious. Like look at the body yada yada. A lot of his artwork has this frightening merge between biology and the divine, as if a religious and holy experience is a parasitic growth on limbs and faces. That's fucking creepy. If you got that one fear, like the fear of like small holes, yeah, sorry about that. You'd fucking hate this shit. Sometimes the detail literally comes like at you in the third dimension. It is very hard for me to believe that the artist did not intend for these to not be upsetting. And I'm gonna go on my own thing right here. I really, really like his artworks, and this could just be me projecting my own experiences onto the art. But I cannot help but get a sense of religious trauma when looking at his paintings. A visual representation of the inner conflict between a deep admiration and nostalgia for such a strong mythos that you grew up with, but also the scars that those teachings have left on your being for the rest of your life. I think I relate this to religious trauma because whatever you are looking at is out of your control. It's an otherworldly observation, but you should be okay with it because it's God's work. And before those motherfuckers are like, there's no such thing as religious trauma. Oh, you have trauma from people telling you that God loves you. Oh, look at this. Oh, shit. Oh, what's this? Oh, I just stumbled on that. Oh, that's crazy because I look at what else I found, huh? You little... I'm not saying anything about whatever you believe. I'm just saying it's a thing. POV, you're Ronald Reagan. Okay, yay! Those are artists that make me want to jump out of my skin. I wanted to keep this list to 5, okay? But in preparing for this video, I found a lot of fucking artists that I really, really like, so I'm just gonna nuts to butts list the other ones. And you should definitely look them up. I'm gonna put their name on the screen. I was so close to putting
Олег Вдовенко
in the video. He's a digital artist that kind of delves into this SCP horror thing, and he makes like these animated, short, found footage horror films that are very creepy. But yeah, his 3D renderings do not get enough recognition. It's very beautiful, very powerful. David Herrerius, again, I didn't put much research into these, but this is one that's very cool. He'd probably make for some dope-ass tattoos. They're inherently very religious, a lot of cosmic horror, kind of esoteric. I feel like Zodiac girls would really eat this shit up. Very beautiful, very powerful. I wanted to talk about Wayne Barrow so much. He just barely didn't make the cut. Apparently he's both an illustrator and a book writer. He's kind of known for like his weird sci-fi like creatures and like hellish looking humanoids. And oh my god, he's so cool. I wish I could talk about him more, but I can't. Very beautiful, very powerful. Atsushi Koyama, purely just because it's like mathematical and overstimulating. Yes, it makes me want to peel off my skin. I don't know, it's cool. Very beautiful, very powerful. Oscar Ciccione, another one that I got really close to choosing, but eventually decided not to because I realized I didn't have that many examples for this guy. He has very cool body horror stuff. I really dislike the amount of detail he put into that catheter. But yeah, look at that like gross textured body horror stuff. Very beautiful, very powerful. Avery Palmer, because they're my goat. I don't really care to explain. They're just the best. Very beautiful, very powerful. And the very last contemporary artist that makes me want to rip off my skin, Brad Pitt. Because like he actually made those like by hand. Like that's just really, really upsetting.